Body camera footage reveals the dramatic conclusion to a nearly year-long manhunt, a chase sparked by the brutal and senseless murder of an unsuspecting woman. But this was far more than just another tragic incident. This case initiated a chilling journey that stretched over 4,000 kilometers, a path marked by fear, violence, and bloodshed, ultimately becoming the final chapter in a long history of brutal crimes. The brutal event sent shockwaves through society, igniting political debates and reigniting long-dormant discussions. More remarkably, it even brought artificial intelligence into the investigation, aiding in the effort to protect people from such predators. And today we're delving into the story of Rachel Morin, a case that spanned 2 countries and utilized nearly every conceivable form of evidence, from surveillance footage to DNA analysis, and from public appeals to intense body camera recordings. There is a great deal to cover here, so be sure to subscribe and hit that like button. I'm also keen to hear your thoughts on the video. Did you enjoy it? Is there anything you would have done differently? Maryland, a small yet incredibly diverse state, is often referred to as America in miniature. It offers everything from cozy Atlantic beaches to the picturesque Appalachian Mountains. Its capital, Annapolis, is renowned for its historic harbor and prestigious naval academy, while Baltimore draws visitors with its iconic inner harbor, exquisite cuisine, and legendary crab dishes. Maryland is also celebrated for its seafood festivals, stunning national parks, and authentic American hospitality. It's typically a tranquil place, where peace is rarely disturbed. But that tranquility was shattered in August of 2023, when an ordinary run along quiet forest trails transformed Bel Air into the epicenter of a national manhunt that would last for months and cover thousands of kilometers. The 5th of August, 2023, started just like any other Saturday, with the sun shining and families enjoying barbecues in their backyards. Children played in the parks, and residents savored the final days of summer. Among them was 37-year-old Rachel Morin, a vibrant woman, small business owner, and a mother to 5 children. That evening, she informed her boyfriend, Richard Tobin, that she was heading out for a run on the picturesque Ma and Pa Heritage Trail, a route favored by locals. Her plan was to first stop at Target for groceries, leave them in her car, and then begin her run from the William Street entrance. It was only 6 o'clock in the evening, and the sun was still high in the sky, and the day was calm and warm. Rachel had no reason to suspect any danger, but this ordinary run was about to descend into a nightmare. The hours ticked by, 7, 8, 9 o'clock. By 11, there was still no sign of Rachel. More than 5 hours had elapsed since she'd left for her run, and she had not returned. Her boyfriend, Richard, became deeply concerned. At 11:23 p.m., he contacted the police to report Rachel Morin as a missing person. As we know, the initial hours following a disappearance are crucial, yet when an adult is involved, police often proceed with caution. The assumption is that adults have the right to disappear of their own accord, and if there are no immediate signs of foul play, investigations are frequently postponed. But Richard was certain this was completely out of character for Rachel. He knew her better than anyone else, and was convinced that something was terribly wrong. Before we continue, it's important to ask some fundamental questions. Who was Rachel Morin? What was happening in her life at the time? Could she have simply chosen to leave? The answer was a resounding no. There was no conceivable reason for her to do so. Rachel, at 37, was a devoted mother of 5, a joyful and caring woman with a generous heart and deep family bonds. She was born on the 20th of May, 1986, in Dover, New Hampshire, one of 8 children. Her parents, Patty and Ronald, raised her alongside her sisters, Rebecca and Aaron, and her brothers, Joshua, Nathan, Michael, John, and Josiah. The family had always been exceptionally close, and that powerful bond never weakened as they grew older. Indeed, Rachel's life was deeply intertwined with her relatives, friends, and especially her children. In 2009, the family endured a profound loss when her father, Ronald, passed away. To support her loved ones while remaining close to her children, Rachel established her own home cleaning business. This venture allowed her to skillfully balance her work with the demands of motherhood. She dedicated time to her kids, cared for them deeply, and always ensured they felt loved and supported. Coming from such a large family, she was never short on support. Those who knew her best described her as warm and magnetic, a person who could instantly lift the spirits of everyone around her. Her friends often said that no party was ever as fun without her, as she had a gift for making anyone laugh. Her personal life was equally full, Rachel had 5 children with 3 different men: Joseph Castor, Jonathan Alderson, and Matt McMahon. Although her past relationships weren't always simple, all 3 fathers remained actively involved in their children's lives. A few months before the tragedy, in the early summer of 2023, Rachel began dating 27-year-old Richard Tobin. Only days before she vanished, they had made their relationship official on Facebook, marking a small but joyous milestone for them both. Beyond her role as a mother, Rachel had a multitude of passions. She loved to travel, possessed a deep faith, and was genuinely committed to passing those values on to her children. She was dedicated to fitness and style, often running marathons, working out at the gym, and lifting weights. It was precisely this passion for fitness that brought her to the Ma and Pa Heritage Trail on that fateful evening. She knew the route like the back of her hand, having run it countless times before. The tranquility, the trees, the streams, and the bird song made it her favorite place to train. But that night, she would not return home. Rachel was the type of person who consistently stayed in touch with family, friends, and even old acquaintances. This is precisely why her disappearance came as such a profound shock to everyone who knew her. When Rachel stopped answering messages, concern began to mount almost immediately. Back at home, Richard paced nervously from one corner to another. Midnight came and went, yet there was still no sign of her. He knew he couldn't just sit and wait. That very evening, he called her family to ask if she might have gone to see them. It was then that he learned the last person she had been in contact with was her 18-year-old daughter, Faye. At 7:04 p.m., Rachel had sent her a short message, approximately half an hour after leaving the house. However, when her daughter replied a short time later, the message remained unread. For Richard, this was the definitive sign that something had gone terribly wrong. At around 3 o'clock in the morning, unable to wait any longer, he set out to search for her himself. Heading out into the darkness, he drove through the Bel Air area, checking all the usual places where Rachel might be. Before long, he spotted her car. It was parked near the lot by the Independent Brewing Company, just a few steps from the trail entrance on William Street. This discovery was enough for the police to launch an immediate search. Even if she had chosen to leave on her own, no one would simply leave their car abandoned in the middle of town. By the next morning, an official investigation was underway, bolstered by volunteers, friends, and Rachel's acquaintances. News of her disappearance spread rapidly throughout the town and across social media. By dawn, dozens of concerned people were already combing the forest trails, desperately hoping to find any trace of her. But, as is often the case, such searches rarely have a happy ending. On the morning of August 6th, 2 volunteers, Cecilia and Evan, made a discovery that would forever alter the course of events. Like the other volunteers, they had set out along the trail, but they decided to venture off the main path and into the dense underbrush, an area few people ever entered. It was there that Cecilia noticed a peculiar stain among the leaves and branches. At first, she couldn't identify what it was, but upon closer inspection, she realized it was blood. Alarmed, she called out to Evan. He followed the trail a little further and soon came upon 2 narrow concrete tunnels that ran beneath the forest floor. Peering inside, he froze in place, just a few feet from the entrance. There, in the water, lay the body of a naked and bloodied woman. They knew instantly that it was Rachel Morin. Her body was face down, partially submerged in the water, and the back of her head was covered with wounds inflicted by brutal blows. In a state of shock, they dialed 911. Within minutes, detectives had cordoned off the scene. During the initial examination, police observed significant bruising on her arms and wrists, clear indicators of a struggle. But the most horrifying discovery was yet to come. The woman had been sexually assaulted before she was killed. Investigators immediately began a meticulous examination of the area. Inside the tunnel, the walls were smeared with blood, and approximately 200 feet away, they discovered Rachel's broken iPhone XR and AirPods, the very devices she had taken with her on the run. A little closer to the main trail, concealed within the bushes, lay her Apple Watch. Forensic experts determined the cause of death to be multiple blunt force trauma to the head and face, as well as strangulation. In total, she had sustained between 15 and 20 powerful strikes, injuries that unequivocally pointed to murder. Electronic data recovered from her devices helped to pinpoint the time of the tragedy to sometime between 7 and 9 p.m. Only a few minutes had passed since Rachel had sent that final message to her daughter. The news of her death sent a wave of shock through the entire town. Her family and friends were devastated beyond words. With Rachel's body now found, the investigation took on a new, urgent focus. The top priority was to identify the person who had taken her life. With the killer still at large, the police moved swiftly. They began collecting not only physical evidence from the crime scene but also crucial genetic material, including DNA. Investigators issued an appeal to the public, asking anyone with information regarding Rachel's whereabouts between 5 p.m. and 11 p.m. to come forward. Fortunately, a couple of witnesses came forward, with employees at 2 local stores confirming they saw Rachel before she headed to her favorite trail. Around 6:30 in the evening, she had stopped at a Wawa, and by 6:42, she was leaving a nearby Target. Later, her car was spotted near a local brewery at approximately 6:50 in the evening. This provided an important starting point for the investigation, while the community gathered to honor her memory. On the 27th of August, 2023, a ceremony was held in her honor at the Greater Grace World Outreach Church, followed by a commemorative walk along the trail Rachel cherished so deeply. Along the route, photographs were displayed, celebrating the vibrant life of this remarkable woman. However, in the days that followed, despite the story gaining widespread attention, the investigation hit a dead end, and only after some time did 2 local residents come forward with crucial testimony. On the very evening Rachel disappeared, Kyle and his girlfriend Olivia happened to be walking their dog along the same trail. They recalled Rachel jogging past them between 6 and 7 in the evening, offering a brief smile. She was alone, with AirPods in her ears, and nothing seemed out of the ordinary. The couple continued their walk, but when they returned around 8 o'clock, they felt a distinct sense of unease, sensing that something was not right. A sudden crack of a branch snapped their attention. Looking closer into the bushes, they saw a man hiding among the trees. He was wearing a gray hoodie and moved cautiously, as if trying to go unnoticed. In his hands, he carried a long object that looked like a shovel. Following this critical statement, the sheriff personally searched the forest near the tunnels, and indeed, came across a shovel that perfectly matched the witness's description. This discovery painted a chilling picture of Rachel's final moments. Meanwhile, DNA found at the crime scene was being checked against national databases. On August 17th, investigators had a breakthrough. The DNA matched another case, a home invasion and assault in Los Angeles that occurred just 2 months prior. The identity of the attacker had not yet been established, but it was a significant lead. Maryland police discovered that the same man had broken into a house, brutally attacking a mother and her 9-year-old daughter. This was the first time he had been caught on video, not fleeing justice, but committing a new crime. He fled under the cover of night, unaware that he had left behind a key piece of evidence, a hat saturated with his DNA. That trace would later connect him to Rachel's murder, which had occurred more than 4,000 kilometers away. But this was not his only mistake. A Ring camera on the door recorded him leaving the house. The video clearly showed a man of Latino appearance, likely in his 20s. The recording was later released to the public in the hope that someone would recognize him. The FBI then joined the investigation, focusing on matching the DNA to the man seen on the surveillance footage. Working with experts from Othram, investigators used genomic sequencing technology to create a detailed genetic profile of the unknown suspect. They determined the DNA belonged to a young man, roughly 20 years old, and likely of Central American origin. Unfortunately, no databases produced a match, leading investigators to believe the man may have entered the U.S. illegally, without documentation or any official traces of his past. Despite the breakthrough, the case stalled. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months, with no new results. By November, Rachel's family decided to take matters into their own hands, distributing over 10,000 flyers in the Los Angeles area. Yet even at the start of 2024, the case remained unsolved. It was not until 6 months later, in February, that progress resumed. Investigators released new information, including a composite sketch of the suspect, and a reward for help in his capture. Initially $10,000, the reward was later doubled by a local law firm, and then a generous anonymous donor increased it to $30,000. Another $5,000 was added by popular podcast hosts, Kendall Ray and Josh Thomas of Mile Higher. Even with this increased attention, results did not come immediately, and weeks passed with the investigation at a standstill. The killer was still at large, without a name, a face, or a trace. Yet, the Morin family, the community, and the police never stopped searching. Finally, In May of 2024, the situation changed. After months of genetic analysis and collaboration across laboratories, the suspect's identity was confirmed: Victor Antonio Martinez Hernandez. He was the person authorities had been looking for all along. His past was violent and criminal, and his profile fully matched that of the attacker. The police now had a name, but the key question remained: where was he? His criminal history had started with the brutal home invasion in Los Angeles and ended with Rachel's murder. Investigators believed Victor felt untouchable after crossing the border illegally, with no documents and no traces, and thus grew increasingly bold. That is when he broke into someone's home, sexually assaulted a woman, and vanished into the night. After that, he embarked on a cross-country journey that ultimately led him to Rachel. Fortunately, even though Victor himself could not be found, he had left traces in the U.S. It turned out that after Rachel's murder, he continued living with his family in Maryland for several months until December of 2023. By early May of 2024, he quietly left home and never returned. He left no explanation and no farewell. He just vanished. But fortunately, Victor left behind a few personal items, which were immediately handed over to the police for analysis, and the results were clear. The DNA found on his clothing was an exact match to the DNA recovered from Rachel's murder scene and from the Los Angeles home invasion. But that was not all. It turned out that the same genetic material matched evidence in an unsolved murder case of a young woman in El Salvador. This confirmed the worst: Rachel's murder was not his first. With all the evidence gathered, the police finally had enough to issue a federal arrest warrant for Victor Hernandez. This was set to become a nationwide manhunt, as he was a transient criminal, someone who never stayed in one place for long. Everything changed in June of 2024, when the Harford County Sheriff's Office received a tip from Tulsa, Oklahoma. It turned out that the suspect had been spotted in the area. On June 14th, using data from his mobile phone, FBI agents tracked him to a bar at the intersection of 21st Street and Garnet Road. At 11:28 that night, police surrounded the establishment, called Los Amigos, leaving Victor no chance to escape. The entire operation was captured on police cameras. Inside the bar, Victor sat calmly, a drink in hand, as if it were just another Friday night. Yet that night would mark his final moments of freedom. When officers approached him, he tried to stay calm and even gave a false name, but he quickly gave himself away, admitting that he was originally from El Salvador.
All right. Any ID? No? ¿Cómo se llama? Juan Carlos. ¿Ah? Juan Carlos. Giancarlo. Ah.
Nombre.
Juan Carlos.
Fecha de nacimiento. Su nombre. October. Smile. 2020 back.
What's your real name?
After a few follow-up questions, his true identity was revealed. The police took several photos, shots that marked the long-awaited capture of the criminal.
Did you?
Sí. Sí.
Victor was soon officially arrested and taken to the Tulsa County Jail. But who was he really, this Victor Hernandez? There is little information about his life before coming to the U.S., but the facts that are known are chilling. In February of 2023, he crossed the border illegally, just 1 month after authorities in El Salvador were already searching for him in connection with the murder of a young woman. Further investigation revealed that he had connections in Washington, Virginia, and Maryland. His movements were not random. Victor deliberately traveled through areas with active criminal gangs, and it was clear he was no stranger to the criminal world. His life had been deeply entrenched in violence, and any doubts about his true nature disappeared when police unlocked his phone. Inside, they found dozens of photos of Rachel Morin, along with other disturbing images. It was a true gallery of horrors, evidence that this man did not just kill, but kept trophies from his crimes, taking pleasure in his actions. Fortunately, those files became indisputable proof of his guilt for investigators. The news shook the entire community. After 10 months of searching, they finally saw the face of the person who had taken Rachel's life. As a sign of gratitude and relief, officers posted flyers throughout the park, announcing Hernandez's arrest, a quiet reminder to the public that justice had prevailed. It was not a public relations move, just a simple message: we caught him. After the arrest, Victor Antonio Martinez Hernandez, he was formally charged with 2 murders and 1 rape, crimes that had spanned multiple states and even crossed continents. Now, he was poised to face the full force of the law. As the case proceeded to trial, the Halford County District Attorney made her position unequivocally clear. If Victor Hernandez were to be found guilty, she would pursue the most severe punishment permissible under Maryland law. Given that the death penalty had long been abolished in the state, this meant only one thing: life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. Despite the overwhelming evidence mounting against him, Victor steadfastly maintained his innocence and refused to take the stand. In court, he officially entered a plea of not guilty. For nearly a year, both the prosecution and the defense prepared for the decisive trial. Finally, on the 1st of April, 2025, jury selection commenced. Hernandez stood accused of the brutal murder of Rachel Morin, in addition to several other crimes connected to the prior attack and murder. On April 4th, both sides delivered their opening statements, and from that moment on, the courtroom was filled with poignant and emotional testimony. The prosecution presented a compelling body of evidence, including crime scene photos and forensic results, along with chilling details of what Rachel had endured. The atmosphere was palpably tense, as Rachel's family and friends sat just a short distance from the man accused of her murder. On the 9th day of the trial, all eyes turned to Victor. This was his chance to speak, to explain his actions, to object, or at the very least, to ask for forgiveness. Yet, he said not a single word, exercising his right to remain silent. One might say his silence spoke volumes, far louder than any words could. Watching the trial footage, it appeared that even his own attorneys understood their battle was already lost. The entire defense strategy hinged on the testimony of a single expert who questioned the methods used to extract data from Victor's phone. However, his testimony lasted a mere 10 minutes against 9 days of prosecutorial evidence, rendering it utterly insignificant. And so, the trial reached its conclusion. The jury entered deliberation and returned with a verdict in just 46 minutes. It came as no surprise to anyone when Victor Antonio Martinez Hernandez was found guilty. A palpable sense of relief swept through the courtroom. For Rachel's family, it was more than the end of their suffering. It was justice served. For the community, which had waited for nearly a year, the verdict brought a profound sense of relief and closure to a painful chapter. But Rachel's story ultimately brought more than just grief. It brought about change. In the wake of her death, the county began to seriously address safety on its walking trails and quiet paths, much like the one where her life was tragically taken, which had long been sites of tragedy and often featured in crime reports. Thanks to emerging technologies like artificial intelligence, the situation started to improve. In November of 2023, the Martin Park Trail installed a system featuring over 100 high-quality cameras that covered 26 key areas. And this was far more than simple surveillance. The system is capable of detecting potential attacks, signs of medical emergencies, and even the appearance of weapons within its view. In the event of danger, it instantly alerts emergency services, allowing help to arrive before anyone even has a chance to make a call. Opinions on AI may vary, but this technology possesses the genuine potential to save lives. However, not everyone perceived this case through the same lens. The fact that Victor was an undocumented immigrant ignited a fierce and widespread debate. As the sheriff himself stated, he didn't come to this country to work or to build a better life. He came here with the intent to kill Rachel, and that is something that should never have been allowed to happen. Yet, at the center of this story is not him, it is Rachel. On what should have been an ordinary summer day, she simply went out for a walk to get some fresh air and clear her head, but instead, she crossed paths with the person who would take her life. She was a woman full of faith, joy, and boundless energy who loved adventure, and she always radiated a warmth that made others feel seen and valued. Rachel truly had a unique gift. She had a remarkable ability to see the good in people and shared her love with genuine sincerity. Her life was tragically cut short, but her memory lives on brightly in the hearts of all who knew her. She deserves so much more from life, and although Rachel is no longer with us, her name will never fade from the memories of those she touched. This concludes the story of Rachel Morin, a case that deeply shook a community and ultimately sparked meaningful change. Thank you for joining us today. I truly appreciate you being here. Before we conclude, I would love to hear your thoughts. What are your reflections on this story? Without a doubt, Victor's actions raise numerous questions and have stirred significant controversy. There will undoubtedly be plenty of discussion, particularly surrounding the political aspects. So I ask just one thing of you. Please remain respectful in the comments. But I'd like to know, how do you believe it was even possible for him to end up on such a destructive path? I also want to hear your thoughts on the use of artificial intelligence in the aftermath of this case. How do you feel about these advanced surveillance systems? Do you view them as a helpful tool for ensuring public safety, or do you believe they go too far in invading our privacy? If you found this episode engaging, or if it gave you something to reflect on, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. And if you wish to support the project, please consider checking out my Patreon or following our updates on social media. Once again, thank you so much for being here. We will see each other again very soon, perhaps even as early as next week. Until then, please take care of yourselves, look out for one another, and never stop being curious about the world around you. We'll see you next time.